So people who don't understand the reality of being black in this country, a story like this can give you access through the humanity of these children.
5 men connected in a way few of us could ever imagine.
You know, here we are, 30 years later, and not too many things have changed.
Watching When They See Us should be mandatory, and here's why. The groundbreaking miniseries from Ava DuVernay is a heart-wrenching watch that is simply a marathon to stomach. But it's so important, especially for those of us from differing cultures.
How the prosecutors and the police department worked in tandem and ignored signs that could have indicated these individuals were not guilty.
I first heard of the Central Park 5 when I was in college. I had just scratched the surface in my work studying African American history, and at that time, I simply couldn't contemplate how this could happen. Of course, I was naive, and soon discovered after hours looking at further examples that the Central Park 5 were just at that time a modern day Groveland 4, who in 1949 were accused of kidnapping and raping a 17-year-old white woman named Norma Paget. And the Groveland 4 were their era's equivalent to the Scottsboro Boys. 9 African American teenagers ages 13 to 20 falsely accused in Alabama of raping 2 white women on a train in 1931. And they were at that time the modern day example of countless cases where young black and brown men were wrongfully convicted of a crime. All of these examples are a representation of a horrible, horrible pattern. Watching this miniseries, I found myself having to pause to take a breath, not just because of the heartache, but to allow myself to face the discomfort I was feeling. A discomfort that many white people feel in this country when realizing that this would likely never happen to them. But far too many would rather avoid that discomfort than face it head on. It's that same discomfort that causes people to look away when Philando Castile is shot and killed, or blame the death of Botham Jean on his having weed in his apartment, or tarnishing Michael Brown as no angel. And as this series so expertly lays out, it's that same urge to avoid discomfort that's used to justify the lies and misrepresentations that allowed the heartbreaking and unjust treatment of these 5 children to take place. That's why so many people across the country will either turn it off or simply have no interest in watching. Because it's easier to ignore the differing worlds we live in and deflect from the reality of racial injustice than face it.
Because watching this is painful, but it's necessary. This needs to be watched. We need to make sure things change now.
And it's for that reason in particular that I think it should be mandatory viewing. How can we mend the wounds of the past if people are too afraid to face it? And the reality that only certain groups of people are subjected to such treatment. Can't you see that the same vilification and assumption of guilt that skewered these kids is the same reason a black man picking up trash outside his own property has guns pointed at him? Can't you see the same smearing techniques used to justify the persecution of these men with zero evidence is the same technique used to justify a bullet to the heart of a child because he bought Skittles and had his hood up? Can't you see that if you continue to look the other way when something makes you uncomfortable, history will continue to repeat itself to the detriment of the same marginalized group of people? We all have a role to play in ensuring that there will never be another Central Park 5. And the first part of fulfilling that role is overcoming your discomfort and watching this critical piece of history, facing this injustice head on, and educate yourself. But I'd love to know what you think over on my Instagram at Francis M. Maxwell. You can support independent media right here. Never missed another breakdown video by ringing the bell below. You'll get notified whenever we publish something new. And don't forget to join TYT today. Download our TYT Plus app on your phone or head over to tyt.com/join.